Welcome to Blue Iron IP's Patent Myth podcast. I'm Russ Krajak, your host, and the author of Investing in Patents, as well as a soon-to-be-released book called Startup IP Strategy. Blue Iron provides financing for patents, so we look at startup companies and their assets, the patent assets, as having value and trying to figure out how do we create value with those assets. Our view is that 95% of all the patents out there are worthless, and the percentage might even be higher for startup companies. Our aim is to take down some of those existing patent myths and put in better practices so that startups could do a much better job with their IP. In this episode, we're going to look at the myth that startup companies should file patents early and often. I think that the reality is we really need to justify the investment for each and every one of these assets. One of the patent myths is that you should file patents early and often. And it's kind of, I take it from the old joke about Chicago and voting, that in Chicago you should vote early and often. This strategy is not a good one for startup companies. And, I have kind of a mantra that I do not want to finance the first patent for a startup. I get involved in startups kind of a little later than the idea stage. I'm usually wanting to get involved after they've had a patent or two and we're trying to finance another round, a seed or angel or Series A, Series B round. So either we're looking to finance the patents or we're looking to do loans against them. But in either case, I'm looking at patent portfolios that have some age to them, that were done early on in the company, and then they've progressed along. It allows me to look back at what these companies were doing early on and get some insight on what to do or what not to do. This notion of I don't want to do the first patent is really speaking to the fact that that first patent has very little data to support it. It represents the highest risk patent that company will ever do, okay? And risk in terms of an investor who's financing the patent, I hate risk, I don't like risk. And I want to mitigate as much risk as possible. I want to take that off the table. So I want data to support the idea that this patent's going to be valuable. And what data do I want? Well, the ultimate data are sales. Okay, if you're selling a product, if you sold 100 million of those, goofy kitchen gadgets last year, I'm in. I want the patent. It's going to be good. Okay, because the sales matter. It doesn't. If I look at it and say, "Oh, I wouldn't buy one" or whatever, that's just me. I might have a completely wrong perspective on almost every part of that. But if you got to sales are the only thing that's the only data that counts. As a substitute for sales, we do customer discovery, we do customer interviews, we do prototyping to make sure the engineering works, we do limited production runs to make sure we got that stuff figured out, we do testing and analysis on the engineering part of it. We do customer messaging. We look at our product and compared to others to see if, there's some parallels that we can learn from or draw conclusions. There's a lot of things that we do on the way to help mitigate that risk. In the US, we have this 1-year grace period from when you have to file your patent within 1 year of publicly disclosing it or offering it for sale or publishing the invention. And so, we don't always have the luxury to sit on the sidelines and wait 5 years for all the twists and turns to happen. Sometimes we have to file the patent earlier than we'd like to, but we want as much data as we can to support it. The way I like to think about this is that I want to get patents on solutions for problems that nobody has seen before. Not on solutions that nobody has seen before for existing problems. And one of the ways to think about this is, as we go down that customer journey, we're going to get to a point where there's nobody else around us. Nobody has kind of seen this element before. And so we have the chance to create what would be the optimal solution at that point. And, what we want is that optimal solution that's so good that other people are bound to copy it for whatever reason. And my favorite example for this is Apple's most valuable patent. Apple's most valuable patent is slide to unlock. Okay, it's not some, whiz-bang PhD derived algorithm for blockchain, machine learning nonsense. Okay, it's nothing like that. Slide to unlock. I mean, just me saying that, you know what I'm talking about. It is the thing that defines a smartphone. It's elegant, it's simple, it's intuitive, it's easy to understand. It's brilliant in every single way. And think about their customer journey, okay? Think about, okay, they're going to put a touch screen on a cell phone. That's interesting, okay? You could probably get a patent on touchscreen on a cell phone at that time. And, but touchscreens were around. They were known. Cell phones were around and pointing on cells, graphical interfaces. And, BlackBerry had the wheels and the buttons and, navigation buttons, all that kind. That stuff's kind of around. So it's somewhat obvious to put a touchscreen on a cell phone. However, one thing they did with iPhone that had never, ever, ever been done on a cell phone was they removed two buttons. They removed the green button and the red button. Every single cell phone, from the old bag phones and car phones, years gone by, up until iPhone, every single one had a green button for answering a call and a red button for ending it. Every single phone had that. And once Apple removed that, now they're in brand new territory. What do I do? How do I answer a call? Apple's most valuable patent is about how to answer a call, the single most basic function of a phone. That is their, most valuable patent. And when you think about it in those terms, they got to that place that nobody had ever thought about. Nobody had ever considered a phone with no green button and red button. It's just everybody had that. And so Apple, got the patent, and that was what they used they enforced that against Google. To Apple's credit, they also tried to patent every conceivable way to do slide to unlock. It was not one, slide from here to here. It was slide up and down, go around, touch places on a face, they tried to, nail down every single way possible. But that invention was so good that Google had to put it on their phone. It was the differentiator between feature phone and smartphone. Now Google could have, and they elected not to, but they could have put a green button and red button on every Android phone. They certainly could have done that. But this technology, slide to unlock, was so compellingly good that they infringed, and they're infringing for the, in the tune of billions of dollars. It's non-trivial, the amount of money that's changing hands on this. And so, using that as an example, I want to wait as an investor. I want to wait until the company finds that slide to unlock moment. When they find that thing that just kind of makes the product work, find the thing that the customers say, wow, I want that because of this feature. And something that's so good, that bottleneck in the design where no competitor has gone there yet. And so they can own it. They can own the cell phone market, the smartphone market with slide to unlock. This is really rare. Okay. I'll tell you that it doesn't happen all the time. But the best patents are always done with more data. And whatever we know from a startup company today, we'll know more data 6 months from now, a year from now. We'll have more interaction with the customer. We will have been playing with the technology more. We will have, massaged our marketing message a few more times. We will have looked at different market segments. All this stuff, we're better informed later on. And the US has this 1-year grace period from when you have to file a patent application. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. It has a 1-year grace period from when you publish your idea or your invention, when you offer it for sale, or when you use it in public. And so during that 1-year grace period, we can use that time to go get some validation, some customer information. And, I'm willing to sit on the sidelines and wait that, use that time period to inform the decision of whether or not that invention is going to be worth doing. It could be we get 6 or 9 months down the road and, we thought that feature was great, but there's another one that's even more compelling. Fine. We've learned something and we've de-risked that next idea, that next invention. And so I really like, that mantra of I won't do the first invention, but also the best patents are yet to come. I'm talking to inventors often where they send me their patent portfolios and they want to do a $5 million loan against them. And I look at the portfolios, I'm like, well, here's a whole bunch of weaknesses with them. They're really, sad to say these patents are terrible. We really can't do anything with them. And maybe what we can do is write some good patent applications that will actually be valuable and we can do a loan. And, and the thing I try to tell them is that the good patents, the better patents are yet to come. That patent on some grand idea is probably way too broad. There's a huge surface area for it to be attacked in litigation or when it's challenged. So, and there's not a whole lot of data to support even having it. So, I'm not too worried about it. I'm kind of willing to sit by the sidelines and, let that one go. I'm not a fan of file everything we got. And, one of the reasons why, in my first book, Investing in Patents, one of the reasons why I wrote that book is to give some guidelines for how to select inventions. And a lot of the guidelines in the book, and there's a 10-point checklist in the very back, are how in-house patent counsel will scrutinize inventions. What are the things they look for? They want to make sure that the patent or the idea is novel, that is detectable, that we can tell that somebody infringes. We want to know that It captures real economic value. We want to know how that invention fits in our product line. Is it, core to a whole series of products, or is it some, small feature on one version of it? I mean, we want to evaluate it to kind of rank how important that is. So that's an effective tool when we're trying to evaluate inventions. But IBM, it has one of the most prolific patent departments. They file more patent and are granted more patents than any other entity, and they have for decades. I mean, they really know how to make this work. And they also have really skilled people in-house that are helping find those good inventions and helping classify and rate those. And they, I don't know for fact, but, I would assume they use the same kind of techniques that I have in my book. Some of those items from a checklist came from very large corporations that do this, in-house at the same kind of scale as IBM. But an interesting fact about IBM is that they get rid of 40% of their patents at the first maintenance fee requirement. And so a little background here. So a patent will issue in the US, and you pay the issue fee and patent's granted, right? So life is good. 3.5 years later, you have to pay a maintenance fee. Okay, that's the first maintenance fee. And for a large entity, IBM, that maintenance fee is currently $1,600. So $1,600 is due at year 3.5. And then the next one's due at year 7.5. And then the last one is at year 11.5. And the prices go up as they go. But IBM gets rid of 40% of their patents at the 3-year time mark. They either sell the patents or they just let them go abandoned. They get rid of them. And what does that tell you? That tells you the company with the best patent system, arguably, the best patent system on the face of the earth, the most experienced inventors, the most experienced in-house patent counsel, the ones that have all the money in the world to get the best patent attorneys and do, this is absolute world-class system. They cull the herd really, really hard just 3 years in. They're only keeping 60%, almost half of the patents are killed off just 3 years down the line. And the lesson here is that even IBM cannot do this well. Even IBM throws away so many patents. And presumably, the ones that they're keeping have real value because they get literally billions of dollars purely on licensing their IP. So they're significantly skilled in this. And even these guys have to get rid of a lot of assets. How much worse is a startup company going to be? How much the startup company doesn't have all these advantages. One, they don't have as many bites at the apple. So they don't have the ability to file 100 patent applications and pick the 60 that are going to be good. They only have the ability to do 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. 10 patents is a huge portfolio for a startup. But even a 10 patent portfolio, are they going to be better than IBM at picking the inventions? I think not. If IBM had a 10 patent portfolio, they'd be throwing away half of those, right out of the chute because they don't have value. They're not worth a measly $1,600 to IBM when they've spent probably $25 or $30 or $40,000 getting them. They're not even worth the $1,600, okay, to keep those things in force. So the startup, investing in patents for startup is even riskier than what IBM does. And, my hope as somebody who invests in that is that I need data to support each and every investment. And the more data I have, and the more that I can push the startup to get data, the more that I can be assured that the assets that we're creating are going to have some value. And I would encourage anybody any entrepreneur to really consider waiting before they get a patent. Okay. From a financial standpoint, dropping $10,000, $15,000 on a patent application early on in a startup's life is ridiculously stupid, in the sense that that is the most expensive money you're ever going to have. And you're taking that chunk of capital, that capital that could buy you a month of runway or 2 months of runway or whatever, that chunk of capital that could buy some prototyping, that could buy some inventory, that could buy some Google and Facebook ads, that can pay for a trip to a trade show where you're going to meet new customers. That money is really, really expensive. Are you sure that putting money down on a super, super high risk investment, which is a patent where we have very little data to support that it's even going to be good, is that a good investment? Is that a good use of funds? I know that a lot of investors will just reflexively ask entrepreneur, hey, do you have a patent on that? And the entrepreneur is embarrassed if they say no. So the entrepreneur is pushed by the investor to go get a patent. And I've talked to plenty of entrepreneurs who say, and even patent attorneys who work for these entrepreneurs who say, these patents aren't worth anything. I know that. But we've got a bunch of investors that, think it's really important. And, that part just breaks my heart, okay, for two reasons. One is they tend to be not spending a lot of time on these patents because they don't feel like they're valuable. So what we get are subpar assets in some way. Either, they don't have, the claims aren't going to be that strong, or they put too much stuff in the patent application, or not enough, or whatever. But we're going to get subpar assets that I'm going to stumble across a few years later when we're trying to find some more financing. And I'm like, why did you do this? Or we're taking money off the table that should be used to grow the business, to, go down that customer journey. I would really caution investors, instead of asking, do you have a patent, and kind of assuming that they do, just ask the entrepreneur, what's your IP strategy? And as angel investors, myself being one of them, I'm not trying to force an entrepreneur, a founder, to do any specific course of action. I don't know what the right course of action is because I don't have all the data to know. But what I want to know is whether that entrepreneur is going to be a good steward of the capital that I'm going to invest in them. Are they going to have good decision-making skills? And how are they going to assess something and make a decision? And that's really what I want to understand by asking the question of, what's your IP strategy? Well, have they thought about it? Do they recognize it as an asset or not? And, are they familiar with it? And if they say something like, well, we think we want to keep things as a trade secret for this period of time, great, I'm all in. That's fine. And maybe we get a patent later if it makes sense. Our money is better spent building some, another round of prototypes and testing them out or whatever. And, we're not trying to force them to get a patent just to make us feel good. We want them to just make good business decisions and be really hesitant to push the inventor in that way or the entrepreneur in that way. So there's a few thoughts on the notion of filing patents early and often. I think that there's a lot of, reflexive, let's just go file a patent and hope that something happens. The odds are since 95% to 97% of all patents are worthless, you probably have a 1 in 20 chance, or maybe even a 1 in 100 chance of that patent be worth anything. That risk is not worth taking in most cases. So I look forward to your feedback and any comments you have. Well, thanks for listening. I'm Russ Krajak, CEO of Blue Iron IP. We're a patent finance company where we'll make 50 to 100K investments in startup companies to get them decent patent portfolios. And then we'll do loans against patents at $2 to $5 million for later stage companies that have some revenue. You can find me at blueironip.com. You can pick up my book, Investing in Patents, available on Amazon. We're always looking for new deals to finance and syndication partners with angel or venture firms. And please feel free to get in touch with me. And I look forward to chatting with you.